Well, good morning, and thanks for tuning in with us. We have Charley O'Hara here to answer some of your legal questions. And I know we already have one caller eager to ask her question, so go ahead.
Wondering, I just moved here from another state. And is it legal in the state of Kansas for you to write out your own will, or does it have to be done by an attorney?
Well, I would have to double check that. There's been some movement in the law on that, but I can strongly say that you're better to go to an attorney. And most attorneys are not going to charge you much unless you have a huge amount of assets. But a simple will can be drawn relatively cheaply by an attorney, and it will really protect you. It's going to be worded right. The problem is when you word something, you've got to word it just perfectly and kind of legalese. And if you don't do it right, it can have some real ramifications. So most you can go to an attorney, I think, for a relatively low price. They can get a basic will drawn up for you. It's going to hold up in court. It's going to be a lot better for everybody. I mean, I think everybody's always scared if they go to an attorney, it's going to cost a fortune. For a lot of simple things, it really doesn't. It's very reasonable, and people really ought to do that when they can. It saves a lot of problems and a lot of money later.
Yeah, definitely a good idea,
Yes.
just to make sure your wording is right and things get distributed how you really want them to be distributed.
Well, it's kind of like going to a doctor. I mean, if you're sick, you can kind of treat yourself, but it's not usually a good idea. You really need to go to the doctor and just have that one visit so you know where you're going and what you're doing. Same with an attorney.
Absolutely. Okay. And now, we were chatting a little bit before. You said you've been getting some calls about rights for grandparents and parents when it comes to visiting, especially when there's, a divorce involved and things like that. So some of you might be out there wondering that same thing if you've been receiving some of those calls. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times grandparents, and me being a grandparent, we have a real close relationship with our children, our grandchildren. And if you do, there actually has a statute that you can get some visitation. It's pretty limited. You have to pay for the attorney fees for everything. But if you do have a relationship with your grandchildren, and unfortunately the parents get divorced, you have a way to go to court and at least have some visitation. And I think, as we were discussing earlier, there's also some misconception among people about if you don't pay your child support, you don't get to visit your kid. That isn't how it works. Those are separate issues. The courts encourage parents having a relationship with their own children, regardless of whether they pay their child support. They're supposed to pay the child support too, or they can go to jail for that. But you need to. But you can always see your kids.
All right, definitely some good advice. All right, we're going to kick it over to Rodney. Thanks again for being here, as always.